Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining into the Polo Show. I'm joined today with a really special guest, Jessie Naylor, even though he's a Portland Trailblazer fan, but that's all right. We'll let that slide today. We're going to cover a little preview of the Niners Week 6 matchup against the Falcons. Yeah, Jesse, you like that one. I bet you did. So let's get right into it.
Gonna throw it. Wide open. Touchdown. 49ers. And to Draymond. Hurry. Watch Stafford go deep. And Rodgers were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones, and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Polo Show. We're doing a Week 6 preview of the Niners matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm joined today by host of Last Second Sports, Jessie Naylor, to break down the preview. Jesse, how's it going, man?
It is going fantastic. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that we're clear about this. I don't know how it goes up. I feel like
what's great is it's backwards, just like you're thinking on that take. So actually, I would do a whole show about that. I'll defend that take till the day I die, in all honesty.
That's funny.
What's up, Tanya? What's up, Brandon? Yeah, I still don't have a mic stand. If Jimmy G leads us to a Super Bowl, I will get a mic stand, and I'll completely change my ways.
Hey, my name's Chris Polo, and I have a $450 mic, the SM7B, and no mic stand because it made you go broke, apparently.
Yeah, apparently I got everything except the stand. Okay, I have the stand. I don't have something to put the stand on because his desk is too big. I'm honestly just way too lazy to do that at this point. I really don't give a shit, in all honesty. But it's
Makes
all
a
good.
lot of sense.
It is what it is. But we're gonna dive into some Niners preview. So the first thing I really want to get into today, Jesse, because I've seen these takes all week, and I'd love to get your take on the show about this, is a lot of people are talking about Jimmy G and talking about how he's improved, how he's gotten better. And I understand that, he's got the 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. It's a much better ratio, obviously. But people are saying that he's improved. He's playing the best he's looked since like 2017, 2018, or some are saying since 2019. How do you feel about that take from people saying that Jimmy G's improved?
I don't know if he's improved overall as a player, but one thing that we can't discount is that he's not turning the ball over at the same rate. Now, we can say, well, he should have thrown a pick here, he should have thrown a pick there. He always has those throughout his career. Every quarterback has those should have been, could have been, would have been picks. The bottom line is they are not picks at this point, and that is the biggest change that we've seen in him. And as far as what he's doing as a player, yes, there was the nice sideline throw to Coleman down the left sideline. Same thing with Ayuk on the cover 0 blitzes. But we've seen things like that throughout his career. I'll give you an example. What was it? 3rd and 16 twice against the Rams. Remember that game?
Yep.
Do we expect him to do that every game? No, that's just something he did. He did well. You have to give him credit, but that didn't mean all of a sudden he was a world beater. So I think this Jimmy Garoppolo thing, regardless of where you stand on it, nobody's going to be proven right or wrong, so to speak, until the playoffs. Because when you have a resume that's as poor as Jimmy Garoppolo's in the playoffs, there's just no overcoming that until you get to the playoffs. Beating the Panthers in week 5 is not going to overcome that. I'm sorry. So we'll wait till playoff time. But to me, I think we're seeing pretty much the same player minus the turnovers. And if that is really who he is now, then they can win with that. They really can win with that.
Yeah, I was just writing about this the other day when I was looking at takeaways from the Panthers game, and I was looking at Jimmy's numbers, and I was like, well, if he's got a 5-to-1 ratio, and he probably won't hold that all year, but if he's starting out that well, if he can improve that, because last year's 20 touchdown passes, 12 picks, it wasn't even
Yeah.
2-to-1. If he can improve from that, obviously we're in a good position. And if Jimmy's just being average, it's all we ask him to do. It's not that we ask him to do so much. If he's just average, I 100% think this team could be holding a Lombardi trophy at the end of the year, as crazy as it sounds. But when I look at this season and how Jimmy's played, and I hear people talking about he's improved, and yes, the turnovers are down. Here's my take on the turnovers being down. Yes, I give Jimmy credit for not turning the ball over, obviously. But we look at the Denver game. If DJ Jones doesn't bat the pass down, what kind of pass was that? That was probably going to be picked off. He did throw a pick in that game that was called back, but he stepped out of his own end zone. He had some throws in the Panthers game that could have easily been picked off as well. So when I look at that stuff, and I know it's shoulda, coulda, woulda, and what ifs, but the idea for me is he's still making those same throws that are all mistakes, like the same mistakes. That's the thing that's been the case with Jimmy is he doesn't improve from the same mistakes on a week-to-week basis as a veteran in this league. And I can't really say he's a different player either. I say he's the same player. He's making those same throws. A lot of the completions are like behind the line of scrimmage too. It's not like he's throwing down the field constantly. It's not like he's doing anything very different. So when I see that, I can't really have a lot of confidence it's going to keep it down. I think he's never gone, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think he's never gone 3 games in a row without throwing an interception. So he's gone 2 the last couple weeks. So if he goes a third game, that's something he's just never done before, and I fear the law of average at that point. I really do fear it. I'm a big believer that law of averages never lies. It'll always show up. But I don't think he's a different player. I don't think he's necessarily improved. I think they've played so much better the last couple weeks, and the Rams win was such a big high for everybody because we wanted that revenge. I think it's very easy to forget what we saw in week 3 for a lot of people, which, no exaggeration, was maybe the worst performance I've ever seen from a starting quarterback with a team like this. And that is not a government hyperbole. That's literally just one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Speaking of government and prepubescence, we got Mav in here. Mav, go to sleep, please. But yeah, that's my take on the whole Jimmy thing. I don't think he's improved, but do you believe that he could potentially in the playoffs, assuming we get there, I think we'll win the division. Do you believe he can improve in a third playoff run from what he's done? Or do you think he's going to shrink again in the playoffs?
Well, just to kind of finish off on the regular season, I just threw out numbers, I think, yesterday and because remember, he only played 15 games last year. So
Yeah.
I took his stats, basically spread them out as if it was a 17-game season, and then compared them to what he's on pace for this year in a 17-game season. The numbers were almost identical. Touchdowns were almost identical. In fact, the yards would have been down this year a little bit, slightly by a couple hundred yards, not a big deal. The completion percentage would be 7% lower this year over last year. Air yards per attempt are identical at 7.5. And the only thing that's changed is the turnovers. That's it. And to your point, yes, there were a couple that easily could have been. I mean, really, if one of those happens, then all of a sudden the turnovers are right back where they were, close to it. So we're close. He's essentially the same player, everything he's doing. And people are like, well, if you watch the film, no.
He's the same.
That's not in my opinion, anyways. As far as can he improve in the playoffs, Chris, I don't know how he can't improve in the playoffs because he's the worst fourth quarter quarterback in playoff history. So if you can improve on that, I mean, the only thing you can do is go up from there. So yeah, I think he can improve, and I would expect him to improve. And I agree with you. After the 49ers beat the Rams, I said to myself, this team is winning the West. I'm sorry. I don't know if they even lose a game in the West. They are so much better than the NFC West foes. I think the division's on lock. It's just about getting to the playoffs, seeing what Jimmy can do. And with all the weapons that are around him, I think he can improve. And if he improves slightly, that might be enough to get it done.
Yeah, no, and when you talk about the playoff picture too, it's different for me. I was never that high on the Packers. I've never been with that Like, to me, the Packers fool everybody every year into thinking they're going to be a lock to make it to the Super Bowl because of Aaron Rodgers and a good team around them. They're they're like the same to me all the time. They're going to be high in the seeding. They're going to win close to 13 games, and they're going to shrink at some point in the playoffs. It's just how I feel about them. I don't think they have the weapons necessary. If they trade for DJ Moore, even if they do that, I still don't believe in them because I saw them fail to get it done with Devontae Adams. So I don't really believe in them. The Rams,
Is
we
that
know,
the
are
rumor that
significantly
they're
worse.
looking at DJ Moore?
I've seen a lot of people throw that out there that the Packers could be a team that goes after him just because obviously it's without Devontae. And I think people say that won't matter, but when you get to the playoffs, you need a weapon like that. And if he's up for sale, I've heard the Chiefs, I've heard the Packers in terms of what people are saying, teams that might call and go after him. If he goes Kansas City, then I have no idea at that point. But even if the Packers get him, I don't really see it. The Rams to me are a lot worse. We'll see if they make some moves. They're probably going to make some moves. That's just who the Rams are. The Cardinals, I don't believe in Kingsbury at all. I don't really believe in Kyler Murray in big moments. Geno Smith might be the best quarterback in this entire division right now. I'm not gonna lie.
That's so crazy to say.
I'm gonna drink the Geno Smith Kool-Aid. That dude is cooking. And then Tampa Bay, they're struggling too. And I thought they were going to be the favorites in my book before the season started. I don't see it that way anymore. So I think it's wide open. If the defense and just the whole team in general stays relatively healthy and Jimmy can just play average in the playoffs, I think they actually get straight through the NFC. Obviously, the Eagles are there, but I need to see the Eagles go throughout the season, see if that continues against other good playoff teams. Same thing for us too. But I think that we have a generational type defense and that can take us there. I don't know about the Bills. If we had matched up with a team like that, I don't know about that. Josh Allen's the best quarterback in football. Nate, just going to throw that out there. But
that is something we agree on, Chris. That is something we agree on.
That is something we will agree on for sure. But yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said there. And I think that
what about
open.
Dallas? And I know that Dallas is always the team that flubs up in the playoff. They're like the Jimmy G of teams, really is they are. So if their defense is as good as the 49ers is or close to it, and they have the upgraded quarterback, because they certainly have a better quarterback than the 49ers have, I don't know if I can write them off either. I mean, defenses travel, and if their defense is playing as good as it has been, you add in Dak Prescott to the fold, they might be dangerous as well. I think the NFC, it's interesting. I really think it's a 4-team race. I think any four of those teams could make it between Dallas, Tampa, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. I think those are the 4 teams. I think 49ers can beat all of them, but I think they can also beat the 49ers. So it's going to be close. I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers make it to the Super Bowl, but once you make the Super Bowl, then kind of to your point, you're playing either Allen or Mahomes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, your defense can be good, but we saw what happened in 2019. All it takes is one quarter for somebody like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen to get loose, and then all of a sudden they're putting up 17, 20, 21 points in a quarter, and then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. For the Cowboys, I feel like that's another team mentally, they just find a way to shrink. Like every time they make the playoffs and they look serious, they just still find a way to shrink. Like last year, they had the top offense, and we shut them down. I wouldn't be surprised if we faced off in the playoffs and Kyle Shanahan found a way to get his playmakers involved and cook that defense. But Mav says he's tired of all the Jimmy G haters because he's never seen someone check down with such consistency, excellent pocket presence, great outside the numbers, and Emmanuel Sanders should have run faster. I always tell people, because when you look at that one draft where Terry McLaurin went, that the Niners could have had him. And I said, yeah, Jimmy G could have missed Terry McLaurin in the Super Bowl instead of Emmanuel Sanders if we made that selection. But moving on from Jimmy G, because it's going to be the same stuff with him, I want to get into the injury report. Obviously, we saw the injuries stack up. We know Armstead's dealing with the foot. Kinlaw's knee is really concerning. How do you feel about the Niners' chances moving forward the next handful of weeks with the certain guys that they've got out and guys just with nagging injuries?
Yeah, I think for me, Trent Williams the whole time was targeting that Chiefs game. So I expect him to be back for the Chiefs game. I expect Bosa to sit this game, and he'll be back for the Chiefs game. They're going to get a week to figure out who they want to play in Mosley's spot. And I think they're going to be okay. I mean, the bye week's kind of coming up at a perfect time. Let's
Yes.
say they beat the Falcons, lose to the Chiefs. Then they have the Rams, which, I mean, they're probably going to beat the Rams
Yeah.
again. Then you go into the bye week. By the time you get back from the bye week, everybody's coming back.
Mhm.
Like, I think there's a chance for either Armstead or Kinlaw to come back, one of the two. I think Mitchell is probably back at that point. And you've essentially, Jimmy Ward will probably have figured it out how to play with a small cast on his hand to protect it. I think that they'll be fine. They just got to get through this 3-game stretch and find a way to go 2-1 in these next three. However that looks, whether you beat Kansas City and the Rams and lose to the Falcons, or whatever that mix is, that's what they've got to figure out. And if they can do that going into the bye week, they're going to be in a really, really good spot. And you come out of that bye week, you play a Chargers team who is not very healthy. And all of a sudden, some of these games that we thought were going to be tough in the second half still may be, but you're healthy. Some of these teams are kind of falling apart at the same time. It becomes a very favorable schedule. So I'm really not too worried about these injuries long term. I'm worried about how do they get through this week.
Yeah.
Because without Bosa, without Armstead, without I mean, they're missing 6 starters on defense, 6.
Mhm.
And I don't care how good the defense is, you're missing over half of your starters. At some point, something has to give. So I think this game is going to be probably a lot closer than people think, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because I remember 2019, that was a trap game for us in a way when we
For
played the
sure.
Falcons, and Richard Sherman didn't play that game, and we lost that one. Um, I kinda sense something somewhat similar, but this one's just a bunch of different guys are out. Um, I think that's where the Niners are so like, John Lynch does deserve credit, Kyle Shanahan does deserve credit for building such a deep roster and developing guys that a lot of people didn't really see worth taking. Um they just get the best out of everyone that comes through. It's not just the defensive linemen, it's the linebackers. I mean, look at the way they developed Dre Greenlaw. He's having a really good year. I was so upset about Greenlaw after week 1 and the penalties, but ever since he got paid, it's he's just been balling out. You look at Hufanga, who I literally did not think was going to be anything coming into this year until like around the time of camp. He's, you could argue, playing like the best safety in the NFL right now. Deshaun Gibson's been playing well. I think it's really good that if they were going to have a bunch of guys missing, that it's happening against a team like this. Because statistically, if you look at the Falcons, um, this should be a game where the offense should be able to execute maybe more than the last few games that the offense has played, just because they average giving up 400 yards a game. That's ass. I don't really I can't really beat around the bush about that. They average giving up like 115 rushing yards a game. So I think this is finally a time where we need to see the offense not put the defense in a position where they have to be almost perfect, and you can go put a team away offensively. Just help the defense out. Like, they've gotten you through these few games. Like, if we look at the Rams game, even the one that had us really hyped up, they still only scored 17 points on offense. The defense just put up a master class. They didn't allow a Sean McVay offense to get into the end zone. Team with Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp. I know they've been struggling more this year, but that's still a huge accomplishment to be able to do that in a primetime game. So going into this week, my concern, I guess, is more just in the middle without Kinlaw and Armstead. I know Akeem Spence and Street, they've played well. They've played decent in relief. But if you don't have that pressure from Bosa at the same time, I don't know how well everyone else is going to look on that line. I think it's going to be really different. But Ebukam came back to practice. So if Ebukam's going, I feel a lot better. He's actually been having a bit of a breakout year as well. So these next few weeks, you got to win this Falcons game because, like you said, you got the Chiefs the week after that. And that's going to be the toughest test that maybe they face all season long, the way Mahomes is playing. And Andy Reid's offense and Travis Kelce, you need to have all your guys ready for that. So you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you could just make this divisional race a really tight rope once again. But that's where I kind of want to talk about potentially adding to the roster, because they've created some cap space for this year. And I'm still kind of wondering what that cap space was truly created for. Do you think, because people are throwing these names out, that the Niners should realistically entertain the idea of trading for Brian Burns, Derek Brown, or Christian McCaffrey? Or is there anyone else out there that you feel like the Niners should bring in to try to bolster the roster?
I don't know who's going to be available. I think those are all great names, but sometimes some of those names are pipe dreams a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance. It sucks that the Commanders won yesterday because I think that they were really close to maybe having a little bit of a fire sale, and that win was enough to, hold things off slightly for a week maybe. But I look at Deron Payne from Washington. Now that's somebody that they could use. He's a defensive tackle. He's an absolute menace, 25 years old. He's going to command a lot of money this offseason. Maybe they're not willing to pay him. And I think with Kinlaw and Armstead out, I would prefer to have somebody like that over a Burns with the way that this team is constructed, because I feel like the edge rushers are in a good spot. I think they need somebody up the middle that they can count on. Right now, Armstead not being healthy, Kinlaw not being healthy, somebody like that would be a good addition, in my opinion. And outside of that, it would be nice to get a corner, but who's out there?
Yeah.
You're gonna get who's buddy from Washington. He's now on Seattle. Just not a very good corner. I mean, he's floated around the league. I think he was drafted by the Eagles. He went to Washington. Now there's just not a lot of guys that are out there that you're gonna get. Sidney Jones, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of guys out there that you're gonna get. So I don't know. I mean, but then there's always a player or two that becomes available that you didn't expect. And I guess really the crux of your question is should the 49ers be buyers if players become available? 100%. They should absolutely go all in. And that was kind of my argument in the offseason, Chris, when people were upset saying, well, the 49ers aren't going all in and they need to go all in and all. Chill for a second, because you don't have to go all in the offseason. You can go all in midseason, much like they did with Emmanuel Sanders. That is still an option. You just don't know who's going to become available, and that's what makes it tough, which in free agency, you know who's available. So that's where people get excited. Somebody's going to become available, and it's going to be at a position of need. Will the 49ers be aggressive? I don't know. Should they be? 100%.
Well, I kind of want to talk about more about the interior. I saw a question up here. So Val was asking if you think that basically if Kinlaw gets extended, because I know you've talked about that knee injury and what you believe that really is. And you can give your take on that in a second. But what do you think the Niners do after this year at defensive tackle? Me and Kevin talked about it. We think they're going to take one probably a lot earlier than people think in the draft next year. I think also Kalia Davis, that pick becomes even more important to see what he ends up giving them. So what is your take on this? I feel like I know where it's going, but I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I don't think Kinlaw is coming back. I mean, I said last year I don't think he makes it to that second contract. There's just something chronically going on with the knees,
Yeah.
and I could be wrong on what the diagnosis is. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm just going off of personal experience. And the moment that he flew to Santa Clara last year and he got fluid in his knee, I immediately said, this man has arthritis, early onset arthritis. And people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're making things up. Then it was funny that Kinlaw came out on his Instagram and was like, I don't know. Arthritis. I don't have arthritis. I'm healthy. I'm good. Well, they managed him like it was arthritis last year. They didn't have him practice. They had him only play in games. And then he was still out. And then he goes and has his surgery after having a cleanup the year prior, has supposedly a reconstructive surgery on the ACL. Maybe that's the case. And here we are, full off season, resting, rehabbing, doing whatever, and he's got fluid in his knee again. That's a chronic issue. That to me sounds like you're getting close to being bone on bone, if not already partially bone on bone, which is all that arthritis is. And people need to understand, when you have a cleanup procedure, that just means that you're taking away cartilage that is the cushion that stops you from going bone on bone. So cleanup may sound simple, but you're removing pieces that are very vital to a 300 plus pound man playing long term. So to me, it's super unfortunate. I hope that I'm wrong, and I said that last year. I just don't think that I am, and I don't see how you sign this man to a second contract. I don't. At some point, you just got to cut ties and move on and figure out other options. And you're right. the Davis pick will become important. And assuming that he is not back, then I would think that they do draft a defensive tackle. However, this is only year 4. They've picked up the 5th year. He's going to be back next year. We'll see. Well, who knows? I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah. And talking about the interior, a name I like to throw out there, I don't know how people feel about this. And in the chat, you can throw out who you'd like to see the Niners go after. But what about Ndamukong Suh?
Yep.
How would you feel about that?
I would love it. I agree. I think that would be a great pickup. But then they went and picked up, what was it? YT or TY,
Yeah.
whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I'll say this. He was a preseason darling. So he had 2 sacks, I think, against the Raiders, followed it up with 1.5 sacks against the 49ers in the preseason. With Chris Kosirik, I mean, you never know. He's built a lot like DJ Jones. I mean, a lot like DJ Jones. It's not like DJ Jones was highly touted. If DJ Jones wasn't drafted or wasn't on the 49ers and wasn't with Chris Kosirik, are we confident that he would have been the player that he was? I think there's a chance that maybe he would have floated around the league very similar to this gentleman. So maybe they got something low-key sneaky right here on the practice squad that can come in and actually make a difference on this team. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And another guy that
Is it T.Y. McCrary? What?
I have to look that up. I forgot his name too. But another name, and this is an agenda I've been pushing since like before the season started. Davo's pushing it. I just want them to get Odell. I just want to see it happen. And I get it. It's not 100% necessary, but my idea is if you have the cap space for it, if there's no one else you're really going to actively pursue, to me, it would just feel really nice to have a weapon in the playoffs that just has really good hands. Something as simple as that. And Odell can be more than just someone with good hands. Like if we remember what he did in the Super Bowl, I thought he was going to win Super Bowl MVP for the Rams, the way that game was panning out. If you could have, ideally, Debo, Ayuk, Odell maybe in the slot, and you're actually utilizing George Kittle, I just want to make it ridiculously even more easy for Jimmy Garoppolo to have success. And I know I love Juwan Jennings, but I know that ever since camp, one of the problems with him was his hands. And OBJ wouldn't be coming in right away. So obviously you're still going to be able to utilize those guys and you can give Danny Gray a chance. My thing is if you can just get deeper in any way you can and just have an advantage over your opponents, I would go after it. I feel like that's someone who I think they said he's targeting a November return, right? You can ease him back into it. He doesn't have to be a huge part of the offense. I understand he's coming off a knee injury, but that to me matters when you get into January. And there's those third down situations where you need a pass. And Jimmy, as limited a passer as he is, I want it to be as easy as possible. I want him to have as many weapons as possible. And if he could just get integrated by the time the playoffs come around and just have an extra weapon, I would love to see that. I don't know how you feel about it because I know that there's so many different players on this team, so many different weapons already. But offensively, would you like to see them make moves like that?
That player's name is T.Y. McGill, by the way. I had to get it right. Okay, so Odell Beckham Jr., I don't know if he is a player that I necessarily care to have on the 49ers just because there is already so much there. And I don't know how Jimmy distributes the ball to anybody. That being said, I think getting Odell, make sure that he doesn't go to other teams is also very important. Because think about it. Where is he going to go? He's going to go to a contender. So these are the teams that come to my mind. Packers, Chiefs, Bills, and the Rams because they're familiar with each other. I don't want him to go to any of those 4 teams. So if that means he's got to come here to avoid that, then I'm all with it. So you're right. I mean, he's a weapon. Yes, that's true. I don't know how they would utilize him. Maybe they can make it work. Maybe they can't. But just to avoid him going to some of those other teams, I'm definitely thinking that it's worth to bring in OBJ for sure.
You put OBJ on the Bills, Josh Allen, or the Chiefs with Mahomes, I don't even want to think about that. But with what they're able to do with what they have already, if you give them something like that, please, that it's kind of
Aaron Rodgers too. I mean, it's not like Aaron Rodgers is chopped liver over here. That's the last thing that we need is OBJ going over there. And then there's rumors too that the Rams and the Bills have looked at McCaffrey. Well, all of a sudden the Rams, who are not scaring anybody offensively, you add OBJ and McCaffrey. I don't want to play that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know McCaffrey's been thrown out there too. I know that's a pretty bad contract, though, the McCaffrey contract. I don't know how
Yeah.
realistic that is to trade for a running back with a contract like that. But damn, I would love to see someone like that in Shanahan's offense. The amount of stuff they'd be able to do, especially when Trey were to come back, the looks you could have would be really insane. But this is another topic still sticking to injuries. Should the Niners rest Nick Bosa, even if looks like he's, for the most part, totally fine? Do you think they should still rest him to make sure that he is 100% for the Chiefs? Do you not see this a situation where, he has to go out there to ensure we get this win before we go face Mahomes the week after?
I mean, it's tough because it's a week-to-week league, and you're trying to win this week. It's the most important thing. That being said, I do think they can get it done without Bosa. If he's 99.5%, I'm not doing it. Not on turf. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Let him rest.
That worries me.
Let him figure it out, and then have him fully not only healthy but rested and ready to go and get after Patrick Mahomes. That, to me, I think is probably what I would do. But if he's healthy, he's going to want to go, and you're probably not going to be able to hold him back. So we'll see how it plays out. But me personally, like I said, unless he's 100% healthy, if there is any indication that he's not, I'm not playing him.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Nick Bosa, because I agree, I would rest him too. I want to make sure that he's there, not just for the Chiefs game, but the rest of the season. Turf just makes me so nervous. I'm like traumatized from that game we had in MetLife in 2020. I've never seen a situation like that with back-to-back plays, and then seeing what happened to Sterling Shepard just running a route on his home turf and just popping his knee. I'm nervous just in general playing on turf for the second straight week because of what just happened to Emmanuel Mosley. But when it comes to Nick Bosa, right, this is something I've been wanting to talk about on here actually. How do you feel about the way that people are talking about the Defensive Player of the Year rankings? Because I just feel like Bosa's numbers are at the top. And every time I see discussions, it's not only that. And listen, Micah Parsons is great. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But the fact that Bosa literally has better numbers than him, and he's the best player on the best defense in the NFL right now. And all I see when people talk about best defensive players in the league, it's Micah Parsons is about to be the next Lawrence Taylor. And I don't hear anything about Nick Bosa. They just get this dude's name wrong. How do you feel about that Defensive Player of the Year battle and the way that that's being covered and Nick Bosa's lack of credit?
I just think he's been disrespected his whole career. It's the wildest thing that I've ever seen. Comeback Player of the Year, didn't get a sniff. Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's getting snubbed left and right. And for what? I mean, I guess the only thing that's good about that is it will probably not a lot, but it'll save a little bit of money for the 49ers. It's very different when you can say I'm the Defensive Player of the Year versus just another Pro Bowl. Like, those are two different conversations. So maybe a little bit of money gets saved for the 49ers, but people are completely disrespectful when it comes to Nick Bosa. This kid is so damn good, and it's so fun to watch him week in and week out. We're truly spoiled to be able to watch him play.
Could you imagine the coverage on Nick Bosa if he had the star on his helmet? Could you imagine the way he would be talked about if he was a Dallas Cowboy?
Oh, no. I mean, it would be force-fed down our throats. Come on.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, no, I think he should probably end up winning it by the end of the year, assuming he stays healthy. The trajectory he's on this season is ridiculous. Yeah, that's why you got to make sure he's healthy all year, because if he goes down, I no. night.
It's
but
bad.
that would be horrible. But how do you expect the defense as a whole to perform throughout the rest of the season? Because I know that there's that take about, well, we haven't played a lot of great quarterbacks. That you could argue the best quarterback the Niners have faced is Geno Smith. And I know you do a lot of film breakdowns and you go watch the all 22. How do you feel about this defense? How much of it do you think is we're facing some inferior opponents and quarterbacks? Do you believe that this team still will be number one at the end of the year? And do you think that the defense will have a significant drop off without guys like Emmanuel Mosley and Jason Verrett stepping in after that ACL tear?
I don't know if there will be a significant drop off. The caliber of quarterback is going to rise, and the
Yeah.
health has declined a little bit. I don't think they can keep this pace all year, but I don't think that they need to. I
Mhm.
think it's important that they are able to just come into the playoffs full bore. That being said, I do not think it at all has to do with just playing quote unquote bad opponents. They are really, really good. And we thought this going into the season, Chris. I mean, I know I've heard you talking in spaces, and I said it on my show that this to me was the best defense since probably 94 in the back end. I thought it was going to be that good in the secondary, and it's been as advertised. Now, I know it's going to be slightly weaker without Mosley, but it's still going to be really, really good. Plus, you add in a linebacker core that they have in that front four. I mean, there's just no reprieve for any quarterback. And then you add in D'Amico Ryans, dude.
Yeah. He's gone next
He's
year.
confusing people. He's confusing people. It's incredible to watch. It's funny because there's a lot of times where you can watch a game and say, "Oh, they're in XYZ coverage. They're in cover 3. They're in cover 1." And then you watch it play out and you're like, "Oh, that's what it was." It's cover 2, it's cover 4, and you can just tell by the alignment and there's nothing exotic. Not the 49ers. They show cover 3, they end up in cover 6. They show cover 3, they end up in cover 4. They show cover 6 and they end up in cover 1 robber. They're
Mhm.
doing the craziest things post snap. And then on top of that, they're shuffling their defensive linemen around. They're doing a lot of stunts. I mean, they really are running a hybrid of the best of Saleh and the best of Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
And they've made it this hybrid monster. The flip side of that is you got a team in Dallas that's doing the same exact things. You watch
Mhm.
their defense, and it is almost identical to what the San Francisco 49ers are running. Obviously, different personnel, and so things tick a little bit different. So those are probably those two in Buffalo. I mean, those to me, end of the season, those are the three defenses that you're going to look at and be like, yeah, those were the three best defenses in week 5. And they're probably still going to be the three best defenses when it comes down to the end of the year. How they rank, where they position, I don't know, but the 49ers are going to be right there.
And the Bills have been missing a lot of starters too. That secondary has been depleted. This was actually interesting. I just saw something. So uh, Andrew was saying a good debate would be who's better, the Bosas or the Watts.
Ooh,
That would be a really good. Well, I mean, they both have defensive player of the years. I mean, I think you got to give the Bosas more time. JJ Watt at one point was an MVP candidate, actually. That would be really, I don't know. I don't know. That's
that's
gonna be interesting
tough.
when their careers are said and done. I want to keep an eye on that now, see how the Bosas do. Um,
That's really, really good. I mean, JJ Watt in his prime versus Joey in his prime. I mean, I'm probably taking JJ, and TJ Watt's been
Same.
nothing short of phenomenal. But Nick's right there. I don't know, man.
It's getting better
That's a really
every
good
year.
question.
He's getting better every year, and that's
Yep.
what I love to see. He's gonna break the bank. That contract is gonna be generational for defensive players. Now I kind of want to start getting into the game itself against the Falcons. So, based on what you've seen from the Falcons and obviously what we've seen from the Niners these first handful of weeks, um, what are your keys to victory? Is there anything that concerns you about the matchup? What do you got so far going into this weekend?
Yeah, to me, I think the biggest key to victory is going to be time of possession. You've got a team in the Falcons who, for as imperfect as they are, they've stayed close in a lot of these games. I understand they were down a lot to Tampa, they were down a lot to the Rams, but then they fought back. This is a team that doesn't give up. This is a team that is continuing to play hard until the very end of the game. And this is a team that can run the ball. And with the 49ers depleted defense, I feel like this might be the game where the 49ers do get gash low key in the run game. You add in a mobile quarterback, it's not going to be easy. And so I think this is a team that could play keep away a little bit from the 49ers. And I think that would be a disaster. I think the 49ers, with the lack of defensive depth are going to need to keep their defense off the field as much as possible. They're going to have to win on third downs, continue doing what they've done the last couple of weeks with third downs. They absolutely cannot do what they did in Denver, going 1 of 10. That would be a disaster. So I think it's going to come down to time of possession. And with that, the subcategory is running the ball. Who can do it most effectively? Whoever does that is most likely going to win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, they're giving up about 115 rushing yards a game. So Jeff Wilson, who I predicted was going to have 100 yards in the Panthers game, he did. I hope that he can replicate something like that. It was really interesting how they got Tevin Coleman into the mix. And hold on really quickly. Look at this. My doppelganger's in here. That's crazy. What's up, Rohan?
Whoa. I mean, is this guy like what is that, a fake Rohan?
Actually, that's actually
that?
Chris. I'm actually Rohan. What?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I thought it was really interesting how they got Tevin Coleman in the mix right away. More so in the passing game than the running game. He only had like 23 yards. But with the return of Tyrion Davis-Price, this is probably the most depth they've had a running back in a while. Do you think Kyle utilizes all of them, or do you think he sticks to kind of what he's been doing and just running Jeff Wilson like 17 plus carries like he's been doing?
I imagine that's what he does. I think he should, although he trusts Coleman. So
Yeah, he does.
really, when he's got multiple players that he can trust, then he's not afraid to kind of deploy them a little bit. He just doesn't want to play rookies, is what it comes down to.
He hates rookies.
It's funny. You're going to spend these high draft picks on these players and then avoid playing them whenever you have a chance. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. I would be shocked if he does like a even split. It'd probably be more like a 70-30 with Coleman getting the other 30. And that's probably how he's going to roll with it. I do think that for whatever reason, he's turned into a guy that wants to play one back primarily. He's going to ride them until the wheels fall off, and then he's going to go to the next one. That's just what he wants to do instead of spreading the wealth a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's going to do the same thing. I think Coleman will continue to be used. I feel like Tyrion Davis-Price is going to take a huge back seat, especially when Mitchell comes back too. I wonder how that's going to work out when Mitchell comes back, how much he uses Tevin Coleman in that passing game, if he even uses him at all. What is it going to take for Jordan Mason to get some damn carries, dude? What is it going to take?
Everybody getting injured? I mean, what's the other option?
He would go sign Devontae Freeman.
Yeah. Real talk, if Coleman wasn't signed, Mac would have passed him in the depth chart.
I think so.
Would have.
I think so too.
He wants. Yeah, he's a veteran. He's a veteran who. I don't know, man. Not being a rookie, can he age a season? That's it. Outside of maybe 2 more backs going down, I just don't see him getting a lot of carries, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't see it either. He would be behind a running back Trey Lance also on the depth chart. But anyways, Rohan says Jessie Naylor is a 49ers hater. Can't believe you brought him on here.
Stop, Chris. Stop. If you're gonna read a Rohan, can you do it in his voice? Okay. That'd be thanks.
Okay. Jessie Naylor is a 49ers hater. I can't believe you brought him on here. Word on the street is that he's actually just a negative Nancy. What do you have to say about that, Jesse?
I mean, how can I deny? It's coming straight from Rohan's mouth to my ears. You're probably right about that, Rohan. You're probably right about that. Oh my
gosh. But yeah, no, it's really crazy to me how he just really doesn't play the rookies. And I'm telling you, and I'm not trying to put energy on there, but it's football. Injuries happen. I really feel like we're so close to Mohamed Sanu. I feel like it every week. We're just getting closer and closer. I'll like listen. I don't want it to happen, but I'm not gonna lie. Part of me really wants to be right, just so I can just laugh at the fact that Kyle Shanahan's gonna put this guy out there instead of like Jawan Jennings or Brandon Ayuk on certain plays. I think it's actually hilarious because when I went to the Cardinals game last year, and Trey Lance threw a dime to him over the middle of the field. And I'm like, why is Brandon Ayuk not running that route? Like, that's what I thought the whole time. And I just think it's really funny. And it's kind of the same thing with Coleman, bringing him in right away off the street randomly, and he just implements him in the game plan. But you have Jordan Mason all preseason. Now, it worked with Coleman, but you had Jordan Mason the entire preseason, one of the best running backs the whole preseason in the entire league. And the dude has, how many carries does he have? Does he have like just 1 carry in that Denver game, and that's it?
Yeah, the one. Yeah,
the 1 carry, and it went for 7 yards. And you're like, nope, that's it. I got to pull you now. I think it's really hilarious. I would like to see them all utilized. I'd like to see Danny Gray utilized offensively also. I know that he was more of a Trey Lance pick and he's more down the field, but listen, speed kills. And if you can utilize that, I'm game for it. I want to see him get a chance. So Rohan, do you have a channel? This is Rohan's channel. Actually, that is the secret. And his channel is also mine. It's kind of weird and hard to explain. But offensively, I just feel like the execution is going to be so important just because, like I said before, I think this is a game that the offense finally needs to step up and actually be the story of the game instead of the defense. I think the defense is going to be fine. Like, I don't think they're going to get lit up, but I do agree with you. I think that this is a game where it might shock some people. And some people might, on the outside, box score scout and think that the Niners defense is overrated after this game. But in reality, they're just so depleted. At some point, I expect a mistake to happen or a miscommunication, just lack of experience with certain guys playing together. You're going down to your backups. So I don't know if Kyle Pitts is going to go. I haven't really heard much on that recently, but I think that this is a game you probably allow 20 points. They average 24, 23 points a game already, which is actually 2 more than the Niners, which is why I really want to see the offense step up. And I'm not sure if that actually includes the 2 pick sixes. I didn't check that. So I really want to see Jimmy G get, for the first time, 3 games in a row without throwing an interception, because we need it more right now than maybe ever in the last few regular seasons, just because I think the division it's really theirs. It's theirs. And I don't want to give the Cardinals, who look bad right now, the Rams, who look bad right now, and I don't want to give specifically Geno Smith a chance to just make it more difficult and more stressful for us as we get in the later part of the season looking at the record. Now
the question is this, Chris.
Yeah.
You're down to your final $100.
Oh, geez.
This is it. This is it. This is all you have. And if you lose this, you have no ability to make more money. But if you win this, you double up and things are looking up for you. Are you betting that $100 on Jimmy throwing an interception this week or not throwing an interception this week?
Jeez. This is another part of my Jimmy G interception take. How much of it is Jimmy and his adjustments, and how much of it is defenses every week? Like, we're going to get a freebie. Just make sure you execute. Make sure you come down with it. Man, I don't know, because you know what? I know there's going to be 3 throws in this game that make our hearts skip a beat and think like, come on, man. Like, every time he throws over the middle of the field and you can't see where the ball is going to land, that is the most nerve-wracking moment of every Sunday during the Niners season. If I had to bet all my money, you know what? I'm going to believe in Jimmy G. I think he's not going to throw an interception this week. I think he's going to do it. You know what? It would make perfect sense, Jesse, for this Jimmy G cycle, because people want to keep saying he's a winner. Wouldn't it make sense for him to go a 3rd straight game without an interception, and it just helps continue this narrative of how much better he is and how they're way better off with Trey Lance, and then he lays an egg against the Chiefs, and then everyone just says, well, the defense couldn't stop them. Wouldn't it make complete sense for him to just ball out this game against a bad team and then just be regular Jimmy next week or the week after that? But I think he doesn't. I think he won't, because we also throw so much behind the line of scrimmage. Dude, if you manage to throw an interception at this point like that, I think he'll be fine. I think he will. Would you?
I'm wrestling with this as much as you are, because I agree with you. I think that it is fitting that he doesn't throw one. He finally breaks that cycle, and then he just wets the bet against Kansas City, and the excuses come out. I'm going to say that he does throw one this week. And the only reason I'm going to say that, it could be as simple as a tip past the line of scrimmage that ends up in a defensive lineman's hands. I think that there's always one tip pass a game. You never know what can happen with that. Then there's 2 to 3 throws a game that a defense should have picked it off. And I think that luck eventually runs out. I think he throws one this week. I'll say that. But I don't feel great about it. I really don't. I'm back and forth on it as well. I just think when I heard you say I'm putting my trust in Jimmy G, I'm like, I can't do that also.
Mariah said Rohan is her future son-in-law. So does that mean Polo is? Oh, hell no. I can't imagine why Mariah would say that. It's like,
Such
you
a
know what?
wholesome person.
This reminds me of the Stephon Diggs clip when someone was going around asking all the Vikings, who's the last teammate you'd let date your daughter? And every single one of them was Stephon Diggs. And then when the dude went up to Stephon Diggs, he's like, "What? I'm a great guy. I'm actually a great guy." That's what that reminds me of right now. Another thing that I want to address too in the last handful of minutes that we have here, the special teams has to be better. We spent money and made it a point of emphasis to improve the special teams. They were really bad last week. We've given up 2 blocked field goals this season, and one of them was returned for a touchdown. Outside of that, we should have shut out the Seahawks completely. And the Panthers, I forgot their kick returner's name. It's Raheem something. I think it's Blackshear. He had 200 yards on kick returns, averaging 28.5 yards per return. Robbie Gould had to make 2 tackles when really he had to just get in front of a guy and get run over twice, and then he had a knee bruise. We saw what happened when we played the Packers in the playoffs last year, a team that was the first seed, and special teams blunders literally handed us that win. Now credit to the Niners defense balling out, but we put the Packers in position off blown coverage where they could have scored going in half. We blocked their field goal. And then when they were punting backed up in their own territory, Jordan Willis blocks it, Hufanga ties it up, returning it into the end zone. I don't want this Niners team to have a special teams that cripples them later in the year and develop bad habits because this team's too talented to waste. The defense is too talented to waste. You have so many all-pros on offense also, so many dynamic weapons. It'd be a huge bummer to me after going after Oren Burks, going after George Odom, and getting Ray McLeod, who only had 13 yards on 3 returns last week, which to me is just not good enough considering that's specifically what he was brought in for. What's been your take so far on the special teams? I feel like that is really important, especially in a week like this, because with the defense depleted and Jimmy being who we know he is, in a game that could become a trap game, you don't want a special teams blunder to just put that defense in a bad situation.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you gloss over that Green Bay Packer game and not talk about how Jimmy Garoppolo led them to a game-winning drive.
How could I forget? How could I forget? Sorry. Jimmy,
Wow,
our
hater.
savior, outplayed Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
I
he did.
will say that. Yeah.
He definitely did. And I just feel like that's a hater take of yours. But, I'll let it slide, I guess. Yeah, special teams is a big deal. It's always the forgotten unit. It did win us a game, arguably, other than Jimmy G and Green Bay. And the problem is, though, Chris, is that what's going to happen is it might get worse,
Yeah.
at least from a talent standpoint, because anytime that you start to have injuries on defense, well, that means you've got guys that are moving up the depth chart, which means now you've got third string guys going to be special teamers instead of second string guys. And that only trickles downhill and hurts the special teams more. I don't know. It's interesting. I really expected the special teams to be elite. It has not been that in any facet of the game. And it's a little disappointing. You go and get a new special teams coach. You spend a lot of money to bring in multiple special teams aces, and it's still not good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you rectify that. I don't know who to blame. But I don't expect it to get better anytime soon with these injuries. I don't. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I did too. And I wonder if they actually make another change at special teams coach, because that's what they did. And if it's not going to improve, I wonder if they make a change immediately again for the second year in a row. But let's get into the last part here, and then we'll get out of here. Give me a bold prediction or multiple if you have more than one, and a score prediction for Sunday's game.
All right. Well, I'll go with the score prediction first. I'll go 20-17 Niners. I think it'll be low scoring. I'm going to say bold prediction. Kerry Hyder gets 2 sacks in this game. And Jimmy Garoppolo throws for over 300 yards.
Ooh, you actually took my second one there. I'm not gonna lie, you took that one. And everyone in the chat, go ahead, put your score predictions, bold predictions also. Yeah, one of mine, I think Jimmy's gonna throw over 300 yards too. I think this is a game the offense needs to step up, and I think that defense is terrible, and we have the talent. And there's another thing too, in the Panthers game, notice how we were making it like a point to go at or go with George Kittle in the beginning of the game. And I'm not gonna lie, the offense was kind of cooking at that point. And then he had the fumble, and they just like stopped going to him. I feel like we might see that again in the script because I personally feel like George Kittle should be leading this team in targets. That's just how I feel when you have Jimmy G at quarterback. Debo, I love Debo. He's got some suspect hands at times. Brandon Ayuk, the routes that they ask him to run, I don't trust Jimmy to hit all those throws. So I think George Kittle's someone who should be leading the team in targets. So not only do I think Jimmy G will have over 300 yards, I think George Kittle will finally have a 100-yard game. I think he'll have like 8 catches, and he'll have at least 1 touchdown. So I think this is going to be a Kittle game. I thought it was going to be last week. It didn't happen. But I think after seeing that beginning portion of the game, I'm encouraged. And I think that they're going to look to make George Kittle a bigger point of emphasis. And I remember Kyle even saying something. It was after, I'm pretty sure it was after the Rams game, how he was saying, like, we definitely got to get that guy the ball more. And I don't think he's lying. I think he knows that. And I know you've watched the film on Kittle too. You know, a lot of people try to say he's washed, but he's getting open. He just needs to get the targets. And I have the score 24-17. I think it's going to be, I think they are going to allow, I think it'll be a more stressful game than people think, but I still don't believe that the Niners defense is just going to completely fold. Simply, this is the difference. If Jaquiski Tarr's our safety, I would say we probably give up like 21 points. I think Hufanga will just be around the ball so much, and I think he's going to make a play at some point, and they're going to cause Marcus Mariota to make a couple mistakes, and I think that alone will just be what keeps points off the board for the Falcons. So that's how I feel about the game going. But
I think the Kittle bold prediction is probably the boldest of all the predictions that we threw out. I think that would be 100 receiving yards for Kittle. Hasn't happened in, I don't even know when the last time it happened to be. I mean, you're talking a full season's worth of games, close to it. It's been a long time.
It's been a while, but it's got to happen at some point. If it happened with Nick Mullins, I need Jimmy G to be able to give me that. I need Jimmy G to be able to find George Kittle if we did that with BDN himself. But anyways, Jesse, thanks for joining on the show today. Everyone in the chat, shout out to all of you staying active. See all your predictions in here. Make sure you like this video, hit the subscribe button. I'm also going to be doing Warriors content soon. Season's starting up. Be ready for the Warriors Invitational in June. Sorry, Jesse, you're going to have to watch another year of Portland basketball. Actually, I just wouldn't watch that shit if I was you, in all honesty. But anyways, Jesse, where can everybody find you if they don't know already? And tell everyone where your channel is and what you got going on.
Yeah, just look up Last Second Sports on YouTube. That's where you can find me. I mean, I'm going live multiple times a week, so it's never a surprise over there. I make sure that I give you at least 24 hours in advance before a show is happening. So make sure you tap in over there, and we'll keep the content pumping out, I promise.
All right. Well, Jesse, it's been awesome to have you on for the first time, dude. I really appreciate it. I'll probably look to have you on too, maybe for that Tampa game since you're out there. And we're all really glad that you and your family got lucky with Hurricane Ian 100% out there. Prayers to everybody out there that had to deal with that. But we're going to get out of here. We'll look forward to this game on Sunday. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to get a win. Go Niners, everybody. We'll see you on the next show.
Wide open, touchdown, 49ers. Play and to Draymond. Curry. Watch Stafford go deep and picked off. Were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop. Into the end zone, caught!